Hey there and welcome to True Scary Stories. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us where you're from and what time you're watching. That helps YouTube know you love creepy stories, and it'll keep sending more your way.
3 True Babysitter Horror Stories. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because we upload new horror stories every single week. Today, I've got 3 stories for you that still give me chills just thinking about them. These are accounts from babysitters who experienced things they can't explain. Things that made them question whether they were actually alone in those houses. Things that changed how they look at that job forever. Now, babysitting seems pretty harmless, right? You watch some kids, make sure they don't burn the house down, maybe watch some TV after they go to bed. But for the people in today's stories, babysitting became something much darker. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and prepare yourselves. Because these 3 stories are about to make you never want to leave your kids with a stranger again. Let's start with the first one. Story 1. The Watcher in the Hallway. Sarah was 19 years old when she started babysitting for the Morrison family. It was easy money, they said. The kids were good kids, 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Jake. The parents, Tom and Linda, were always gone by 7 in the evening and back by 11 or midnight. A 4-hour gig, once or twice a week. For the first month, everything was completely normal. The kids would have dinner, do homework, watch a movie, and then off to bed by 8:30. Sarah would sit downstairs, do her own homework, maybe scroll on her phone. Easy money. That's all it was. But then things started to feel different. It was a Thursday night in late October. Sarah arrived at the house around 6:30. Tom and Linda were heading out to some work dinner. They gave her the usual rundown. Emergency numbers on the fridge. Kids' bedtime is 8:30. There's pizza in the freezer if she gets hungry. Standard stuff. The evening went like it always did. Emma was working on a math assignment at the kitchen table. Jake was upstairs in his room playing with action figures. Sarah made them dinner, and they ate together. Nothing strange. Nothing out of place. Around 8 o'clock, she got both kids ready for bed. Emma fell asleep pretty quickly in her room. Jake took a little longer, but by 8:40, he was out. Sarah double-checked both rooms, locked the front and back doors like she always did, and settled onto the couch downstairs with her phone. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels thick and heavy when you're the only adult in a place that's not yours. But Sarah had gotten used to it. She put on a show on Netflix and tried to relax. That's when she heard it. A footstep. In the hallway upstairs. Now old houses make noise, right? Floors creak, pipes settle, whatever. Sarah didn't think much of it at first. But then she heard another one. And another one. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone was walking down the hallway toward the kids' bedrooms. Sarah paused her show and listened. The footsteps had stopped. She sat there for a minute or two, heart beating a little faster than it should have been. She told herself one of the kids probably just woke up and was walking to the bathroom. That was it. That had to be it. She unpaused her show and tried to focus. But she couldn't. The whole time, she was listening, waiting for another sound. Around 10 minutes later, she heard the footsteps again. This time they were moving down the hallway, moving toward the stairs. Sarah's pulse started racing. She muted her TV and sat perfectly still. The footsteps got slower as they approached the top of the staircase. Sarah held her breath. Every instinct in her body was screaming at her that something was wrong. That something was very, very wrong. But then, nothing. The footsteps just stopped. Like whoever, or whatever, was making them had paused at the top of the stairs and decided not to come down. Sarah grabbed her phone and opened the flashlight. She turned it off just as quickly. If there really was someone upstairs, she didn't want them to know that she'd seen them. That she was aware. She sat there in the dark, listening. Listening so hard her ears rang. And then she heard something that made her blood run cold. Breathing. Slow, heavy breathing from somewhere in the darkness above her, on the second floor. But not coming from the kids' rooms. It was coming from the hallway. Like someone was standing there. Just standing there. Breathing. Sarah's instinct was to run. Run to her car, call the police, get out of that house. But she couldn't. The kids were upstairs. Emma and Jake were asleep upstairs, and she couldn't just leave them. She grabbed the TV remote and aimed it upward, toward the stairwell. Then she called out, as loud and confident as she could make her voice sound. "I'm calling the police. If you don't leave this house right now, I'm calling 911. She was shaking as she said it, hoping it would be enough. Hoping whoever was up there would just leave. For a moment, there was silence. Total, complete silence. Then, the footsteps again. But this time, they were moving away. Moving back down the hallway, away from the stairs. Moving toward the back of the house, toward the master bedroom. Sarah immediately grabbed her phone and dialed 911. Her hands were trembling so badly she could barely punch in the number. When the operator answered, she whispered everything. That she was babysitting, that she'd heard footsteps, that she thought someone was in the house. The operator told her to stay calm, to stay on the line. Police were being dispatched. It would be about 8 minutes. 8 minutes felt like 8 hours. Sarah kept the phone pressed to her ear, listening. Listening to the operator's calm voice trying to keep her steady. And she listened to the house. But the house was silent now. Whatever had been up there was either hiding or gone. When the police arrived, they swept the entire house. Upstairs, downstairs, basement, attic. They checked every room, every closet, every possible hiding spot. They found absolutely nothing. No open windows. No signs of forced entry. Nothing. The officer that interviewed Sarah was kind but skeptical. He asked if she'd been watching anything scary on TV. If maybe her mind had played a trick on her. Sarah tried to explain, but she could see it in his eyes. He didn't believe her. Tom and Linda came home about 20 minutes after the police left. Sarah told them everything. They were concerned, sympathetic, but she could see it on their faces too. The doubt. The polite disbelief. What Sarah didn't tell them, what she didn't tell anyone, was what happened next. After the police left, after she'd gotten her heart rate back to normal, Sarah went upstairs to check on the kids one more time before their parents got home. She needed to make sure they were okay. That they hadn't woken up during all of this. She checked Emma's room first. The little girl was still asleep, curled up on her side, covers pulled up to her chin. Fine. Everything was fine. Then she went to Jake's room. And that's when she noticed it. Jake was still asleep, but standing at his bedroom window, with her hand pressed against the glass from the outside, was a figure. A woman. Pale. With long dark hair hanging in front of her face. Her hand was inside the room, against the window pane, like she was trying to push through the glass. Like she wanted to touch the little boy as he slept. Sarah screamed. She actually screamed. But when she looked again, the figure was gone. Sarah never babysat for the Morrison family again. She told them she was too busy with school, that it just wasn't working out. They seemed almost relieved. To this day, Sarah doesn't know what she saw that night. Whether that figure at the window was real or something her terrified mind had conjured up. But she's never forgotten the feeling of being watched in that house. The feeling that something wanted in. And sometimes she wonders, if she hadn't called out that night, if she hadn't scared it away from the stairs, would it have come down? Story 2, The Overnight Shift. Derek had been babysitting for families in his neighborhood for about 3 years. He was reliable, responsible, and honestly, it was good money for a college kid. Most of his gigs were your typical Friday or Saturday night situation. A few hours, the kids asleep by 9, home by midnight. But in the summer of 2019, he took on an overnight babysitting job that he would spend the rest of his life regretting. The family was the Hendersons. A single mom named Patricia and her 2 kids, a 10-year-old boy named Marcus and an 8-year-old girl named Sophie. Patricia worked nights as a nurse at the local hospital. She needed someone to stay overnight, watch the kids in the evening, get them to bed, and then monitor them through the night while she was at work. The pay was better than Derek's usual gigs. $35 an hour for overnight work. He could study, sleep a little, and make decent money. It seemed perfect. The first few overnights were uneventful. Derek would arrive around 6 in the evening. He'd have dinner with the kids, help them with any homework, get them to bed, and then the house would be his for the next 12 or so hours. Patricia would be back by 8 in the morning. It was during the fourth overnight that things took a turn. Derek was in the living room around 2 in the morning, unable to sleep. He had his laptop open, watching videos, when he heard a sound coming from the kids' hallway upstairs. A soft sound, like something being dragged across the floor. He paused his video and listened. The sound continued for another few seconds, then stopped. Derek told himself it was probably just the house settling. Old houses made weird noises, especially at night. He went back to his video. But then he heard it again. And this time it was louder and closer. It sounded like something was being dragged down the hallway, down toward the stairs. Derek's stomach tightened. He closed his laptop and sat still, listening. The sound moved to the top of the staircase. Then he heard the creaking of footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Measured. Like someone was deliberately coming downstairs. Step by step. Derek stood up. His mind was racing through possibilities. Had one of the kids woken up? That seemed most likely. Maybe Marcus had had a nightmare or Sophie was sick. Marcus? He called out. Sophie? Everything okay? The footsteps stopped immediately. Derek waited for a response, but nothing came. Just silence. Hey, are you guys all right? He called again. Still nothing. Derek made his way to the foot of the stairs and looked up. The hallway was dark. He could barely make out the doorway to the kids' rooms. I'm coming up, he said, mostly to alert whoever was up there. He started climbing the stairs. Each step creaked under his weight. He reached the top and stood in the hallway. The house was so quiet he could hear his own heartbeat. Marcus's room was to the left. Sophie's was to the right. Derek decided to check Marcus first. He pushed open the door slowly. Marcus was in bed, sound asleep, his chest rising and falling steadily. Everything was fine. Derek went to Sophie's room next. He pushed her door open. Sophie was also in bed, asleep, exactly as she should have been. Derek stood in her doorway for a moment, confused. If both kids were asleep, what had he been hearing? What had made those sounds? Then he noticed something odd. Sophie's closet door was wide open. It had definitely been closed earlier when Derek had done his nightly check. He was sure of it. His hand moved to the light switch, but he hesitated. For some reason, he didn't want to flip that light on. Didn't want to see what might be inside that open closet. But he forced himself to do it anyway. He turned on the light. Nothing. The closet was just a closet. Clothes, toys, the usual stuff. Nothing hiding in there. Nothing unusual. Derek turned the light back off, but he felt cold. Really cold. Like someone had just opened a window in the middle of winter. He went back to check Marcus's room one more time. Still asleep. Then back to Sophie's room. That's when Derek noticed something that made his breath catch in his throat. There were wet footprints on Sophie's bedroom floor. They started at the window, which was closed and locked, and they trailed across the carpet, past Sophie's bed, to her closet, and then to her bedroom door. Wet footprints. Like someone had come in from outside, walked across the room, opened her closet, and then gone back out. Derek's hands started shaking. He went to the window immediately. Locked. Checked it again. Still locked. The screen was intact. There was no way someone could have gotten in through that window. He looked at the footprints again. They were fading now, the carpet already starting to dry them out. But they'd definitely been there. He wasn't imagining it. Derek knew he should call the police. He should call Patricia. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. But instead, he did something incredibly stupid. He went downstairs, got his phone, and called Patricia at the hospital. When she answered, her voice was careful, controlled. Like she'd been expecting this call. "Derek? What's wrong? Did something happen to the kids?" "No, the kids are fine," he said. "They're both asleep. I found something. Wet footprints in Sophie's room. Coming from the window. But the window was locked. I don't understand." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Derek," Patricia said slowly, "I need you to lock all the doors right now. Do not go back upstairs. Lock yourself in the living room and wait for me to come home." "What? Why? What's going on? Just do it. Please. Lock the doors and wait. I'm leaving right now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up. Derek immediately went through the house and locked every door. The front door, the back door, the garage. He locked them all and then sat in the living room with all the lights on, waiting. When Patricia arrived, she looked panicked. Genuinely terrified. She immediately went upstairs to check on the kids. They were both still asleep. She came back down and sat with Derek in the living room. "I need to tell you something," she said. "And I need you to promise me you won't think I'm crazy." "Okay," Derek said. "About 6 months ago, before I hired you, I would wake up in the morning and find wet footprints throughout the house. Just like what you found tonight. I had the police come out. They found nothing. No forced entry, nothing. The footprints would appear maybe once or twice a week, but I could never figure out where they were coming from or how someone was getting in." Derek felt his skin crawl. "I eventually started sleeping with a knife under my pillow," Patricia continued. "One night, I heard someone walking around the house. I grabbed the knife and went to check on the kids. When I got to Marcus's room, someone was standing over his bed. I couldn't see their face clearly, but I remember their pale skin and the sound they made when I screamed, this awful, wet gurgling sound. By the time I turned on the light, they were gone. But I found that same wet footprint again." "Why are you telling me this?" Derek asked, though he thought he already knew the answer. "Because I need you to understand what this is," Patricia said. "And I need you to know that whatever is leaving these footprints, it seems to be interested in my children. And I don't know how to stop it." Derek never babysat for the Hendersons again. He learned later through social media that Patricia eventually moved away. He doesn't know where. But sometimes, late at night, he still thinks about those wet footprints. He thinks about the sound of something being dragged through a hallway. He thinks about a wet, gurgling sound in the darkness. And he wonders what would have happened if Patricia hadn't answered her phone that night. Story 3. The Last Babysitting Job. Megan had been babysitting since she was 14 years old. By 22, it was basically her career while she figured out what she wanted to do with her life. She'd watched probably 50 different kids for various families. She had excellent references. Parents trusted her. Everything was professional and routine. In March 2021, she got a call from a woman named Catherine. Catherine had a 5-year-old daughter named Lily and needed someone for a Saturday night babysitting gig. The pay was better than usual, $40 an hour, but Megan didn't ask why. Easy money was easy money. Catherine lived in a big house on the edge of town. Megan had never been there before. It was impressive, modern, well-maintained, but kind of isolated. No nearby neighbors. Just trees surrounding the property. Catherine answered the door when Megan arrived around 6 in the evening. She was a tall woman, thin, with blonde hair and a nervous energy about her. She seemed on edge. Kept wringing her hands and checking her watch. "Lily's upstairs," Catherine said. "She's been asking for you all day. I showed her a picture and everything." "You showed her a picture?" Megan asked. "But I haven't babysat for you before. How would you have a picture of me?" Catherine didn't answer. She just smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and gestured toward the stairs. "She's just excited about a babysitter. Kids are like that, you know?" Anyway, I should get going. I'm running late. Before Megan could ask any more questions, Catherine grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Emergency numbers are on the fridge, she said. Lily goes to bed at 8. Don't let her stay up past that. Wait, Megan said. When will you be back? And where are you going? Around midnight, Catherine said. And I have some errands to run. Be good. Then she was gone. Out the door and driving away before Megan could say another word. Megan stood in the entryway for a moment, feeling unsettled. Something about this whole situation felt off. But she'd babysat for plenty of families, and some parents were just weird. It wasn't a big deal. She went upstairs to find Lily. Lily's room was at the end of the hallway. Pink walls, princess decorations, toys everywhere. And sitting on her bed was Lily, a small girl with curly brown hair and pale skin. When she saw Megan, she smiled. You came, Lily said. Mommy said you would. Hi, Lily, Megan said, matching the girl's smile. Ready to have some fun? They spent the evening together. Megan helped Lily make a snack, they played some games, watched a movie. Lily was a sweet, quiet kid. Well-behaved. But there was something about her that was different from other 5-year-olds. She seemed older somehow. More aware. Around 7:30, Megan started the bedtime routine. Bath, pajamas, teeth brushing. The usual stuff. As Megan tucked Lily into bed, the little girl looked up at her with these big, serious eyes. The thing in the walls doesn't like it when Mommy leaves, Lily said. Megan's hand froze on the light switch. What do you mean, sweetheart? What thing in the walls? It hides during the day, Lily said. But when Mommy goes out at night, it comes out. It walks around. Sometimes it stands outside my room and breathes really loud. Megan felt goosebumps spreading across her skin. Lily, has something scared you before? Has someone been in this house? Lily just looked at her calmly. Turn off the light and you'll hear it too. Despite every instinct in her body telling her not to, Megan turned off the light. She stood in the darkness of Lily's room for a moment, listening. At first, there was nothing. Just the normal house sounds, the hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the ticking of a clock, the wind outside. But then, gradually, Megan became aware of a sound that she couldn't quite place. It was coming from somewhere in the house, somewhere far away. A scratching sound. Like fingernails on drywall. Slow and rhythmic. Scratch. 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 It was coming from inside the walls. Megan left Lily's room and went downstairs immediately. She tried to tell herself that it was probably just the house settling, or rats in the walls, an infestation, not something more sinister. But the scratching continued, and it seemed to be moving, following her through the house. She went to the kitchen and checked the time. 7:45. Catherine wouldn't be back until midnight. She was alone with this little girl in a big house while something was scratching in the walls. Megan considered calling Catherine, but she realized she didn't even have her number. She considered calling the police, but saying what? That she heard scratching? They'd think she was crazy. She stayed downstairs, all the lights on, watching her phone and listening to that horrible scratching sound continue throughout the night. Sometimes it was in the walls near the kitchen. Sometimes it moved to the living room. Sometimes it was in the hallway. The scratching continued for hours. Around 11, it finally stopped. Megan waited, listening intently, but there was nothing. Just silence. At 11:45, Catherine came home. She looked perfectly fine. No bags, no evidence that she'd been anywhere. Like she'd been out Just like she'd been out the whole time but not actually done anything. Megan packed up her stuff immediately. How was Lily? Catherine asked. Was she good? She was fine, Megan said. But I heard scratching in the walls. In the walls of your house. You might want to get that checked out. Could be an infestation or... Oh, that, Catherine said casually. Yeah, we have that problem sometimes. The exterminators never find anything, though. They checked the whole house and can't locate where it's coming from. What do you mean they can't locate it? Megan asked. Catherine just smiled, that same unsettling smile from earlier. It's probably nothing. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, Lily. We'll call you again. Megan got out of that house as fast as she could. Catherine did call again. Multiple times. But Megan never answered. She blocked the number eventually. Years later, Megan would still think about that night sometimes. About Lily's warning. About the scratching in the walls. About Catherine's strange behavior and that off smile. And she would often wonder, was Catherine trying to warn her about something? Or was she trying to feed her to it, whatever was living in those walls? Megan never found out. And she never wants to. And that's where we have to end it for tonight, guys. 3 stories that'll make you think twice before babysitting for someone new. Or before leaving your kids with a stranger. The worst part about stories like these is that we don't get closure. We don't know what happened to Sarah, or Derek, or Megan. We don't know if those things are still out there. If they're still waiting. If you've experienced anything like these stories, anything paranormal or unexplained, comment down below. I read all your comments, and I'd love to hear your stories too. Like she'd been out the. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed these 3 stories, please like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a new video. We upload every single week. Stay safe out there. And maybe think twice the next time you hire a babysitter. Good night.